In this episode, we start to set up our logistics network and bring some parts together that we prepared in earlier episodes in order to produce 60 crystal oscillators per minute. Yo, hello everyone! Welcome back to Pronto Play and Project Nuclear Mayhem in Satisfactory. The goal of this project is to produce the maximum possible amount of uranium fuel rods in the game that will fuel 252 nuclear power plants at once and give us a total output of 630 gigawatts in the end. In the last episode, we started to plan our Nuclear Mayhem headquarters and reached a big milestone by setting up 252 nuclear power plants. A key component of our factory network, since all our effort is for firing up all these at once. The question that remained unanswered the last time is if we continue with our HQ building now or prepare more of the modular factories first. And I chose to continue with option number 2 because if we take a look at our production plan, there are still a lot of parts to take care of. And at this point I cannot say what we will deal with somewhere else completely and what will ultimately be processed in our planned HQ building. So rather than setting up something now and build it too big or too small due to poor forecasting, let's rather focus on the tasks right in front of us. And today we will dive into a modular factory that we sorted into the tier 2 segment of this network, the Crystal Oscillators. These are required partially for making the uranium fuel rods and partially for further processing into beacons, which are again another input for uranium fuel rods. So setting up these will be our next big step to our goal. Now, crystal oscillators are in the tier 2 segment because the input for it is already halfway there. Considering that we will use the alternate recipe insulated crystal oscillator, we prepared a huge part of the required input rubber as well as the AI limiters a long time ago in our tier 1 factories. We will need 50.4 crystal oscillators per minute for the fuel rods and exactly 5.04 for the beacons. So let's once again round it up a little bit and aim for a production of an even 60 crystal oscillators per minute. Now the last input that we need to add is quartz crystal, and conveniently there's a bunch of raw quartz right around the corner, and it's right here in the rocky desert close to our power plants. Seems like it's underground. Now how do I get there? I'm really wondering how we can access these resource nodes. Dude, how is that so difficult? I'm getting further and further away, but I can't find the entrance. Oh, I think I found something. This is looking promising. So let's do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And once the dust has settled, we can see if we are on the right track again. And man, this is hitting the frame rate. But we're looking good. Oh wow. A very big cave underground, but we found it. Here is the normal quartz node. And do we find the other one as well? It's 200 meters in this direction. Yes, here it is. Alright, we found the quartz. And we are completely underground beneath the rocky desert. So I think we have to transport the raw quartz all the way into this direction to where our concrete factory is. Okay, I brought everything with me, so let's place some miners. I already laid down the foundations. Number 1. And number 2. Let's bring it over here. And then over there. And I think we can already start to stack them on top of each other. Something like this. Not the cleanest, but it's working for our purposes. Okay, I actually decided to go with 2 stackable poles rather than one conveyor belt running on the ground, because for once it's easier to stack the 2 conveyor belts directly on top of each other, and also I avoid clipping with this method. And I just went and wanted to get some gas masks for this area here because of the fart rocks, but I remembered then that after update 8 we can simply do this. After some conveyor belt, building some power poles and a little bit more of path clearance, we finally reached the daylight again. And now the raw quartz will come out of here, a total output of 1200 raw quartz per minute. And technically we haven't reached daylight yet because it's still nighttime, but anyways, let's continue. Now the idea that I have is that I actually don't want to build another factory. That was the initial thought, that we like please Satan over this pentagram here or whatever that is, with another factory with crystal oscillators and maybe feed him the excess or whatever. But then I had the idea of making use of my own laziness and just adding the crystal oscillator build right next to our concrete factory. Because rather than having to deal with two factory builds and thinking about cosmetics for two factories, I just add the crystal oscillators to this one, and then we can think about how to make this building look neat and beautiful. And after extending the conveyor belt as well as the power poles just a little bit more, we now reached the concrete coast where we have the concrete factory already in place. And right next to it I placed a little 16x16 foundation just for the start. I just realized that I exaggerated all the time with the required raw quartz input. It's not 1200, it's just an even 1000. But anyways, that doesn't change the fact that we have to use yet another blueprint, and I once again adjusted one blueprint from earlier, the wire constructors, and here we have 8 quartz crystal constructors. And the idea is to actually set up 2 lines of these with 14 constructors on each side, one being underclocked just a little bit, and we are standing right in the dead center of the foundations. So let's maybe start over here and then go maybe like this, and then same thing on the other side. So now we have 16 constructors in place. And then we just add a second blueprint behind both first ones. And after the last constructor of each line is deleted again, we now have 28 constructors in place for our quartz crystal need. Alright, now for the manufacturers it will be a different story, because the next step is to get the quartz crystal together with the AI limiters and the rubber and produce crystal oscillators out of it. But in order to get our hands on 60 crystal oscillators per minute with the alternate recipe, we need 32 of these. And this platform here, by the way, I already deleted a little bit of it on the other side because it's not necessary. But still we need 32 manufacturers in order to produce the targeted amount of crystal oscillators. And this place here is not at all big enough. So my idea is actually to now make this an actionable building with walls, pull it up, and then build a second level on top of it. But the second level will also go on top of our concrete factory. So basically we will extend it on top of the other building so that they kind of overlap. And also I want to keep the gap in between the two factories so that they can be told apart, if you know what I mean, but also go kind of hand in hand. I have some vague ideas in my mind how I want to pull this off, but I will just start and go with the flow, and hopefully it will turn out quite nice in the end. So let's begin. Alright, so far so good. I'm quite satisfied with how the factory turned out so far, and also I'm really glad that we finally addressed the cosmetics of the concrete factory as well. But we actually had to take a little break over there because we want to make sure that the 32 manufacturers that we need for these 60 crystal oscillators per minute actually fit on this floor. And I just had to extend the upper level in comparison to the lower one by one foundation to this direction, so that we have kind of a symmetrical look. And if we look from here, which is completely in the center of the lower level, then you can see that it's one foundation shifted to the right, but in my opinion it's still the best solution, because otherwise, yeah, it's just difficult regarding spacing and so on. So we will continue like this from now on. And now I want to set the 32 manufacturers in place. Then we complete the second level regarding walls and ceiling. And then the plan is to add another level on top where we will place a train station, so that the AI limiters as well as the rubber can be brought in via train, and we will be able to produce the crystal oscillators. And here we have the 32 manufacturers in place already. Now, for cosmetic purposes, I worked out the spaces for the manufacturers with asphalt foundations and coated the concrete in between as an indication for walkways. But we will work out the logistics now for the quartz crystal underneath the platform, and for a consistent cosmetic and not having all the mishmash of asphalt and concrete, I placed a second layer of 1 meter concrete foundations underneath and cut out the conveyor floor holes for the quartz crystal conveyor belts. Because the plan is that the total output of 600 quartz crystal of this factory will eventually merge onto one single conveyor belt. Then we bring it up this tunnel that we just built all the way up, and then we have a conveyor belt that will be split to all of the 32 manufacturers and will feed the quartz crystal into them from underneath. Okay, now I wanted to hide all these conveyor belts and splitters behind some concrete foundations and walls, but this is looking better than I thought. I will think about this again. Maybe I just leave this open, because yeah, it has something with these lights and the pattern that it creates. Yeah, I think we just leave it be for the moment, and we can also always decide otherwise and still hide it. But for the moment, let's keep the conveyor belts for the quartz crystal visible. Okay, so far so good. Now I actually just want to continue with completing the second level and pulling up some walls, and I want to use full framed windows to have it completely out of glass, but I think it will look weird if we put a whole train station on top of it, because yeah, it will be supported by just basically glass, and I don't know how this will look like. So yeah, let's see what kind of frames we actually use. Okay, let's go with the metal panel window for this floor over here, but at the bottom we will add another metal wall, and this is mainly to hide the foundations from this level, so that we will have 2 meters at the concrete level and then another 2 meters rising on top. So we will add 5.5 walls, which is 22 meters in height, which should be more than enough to be higher than the manufacturers, and then we can add the next level on top. So yeah, let me just blueprint this really quick all around this area. Alright, not too shabby. It's actually coming together quite well in my opinion. So far I'm happy with the result, but now we actually have to think about how we want to set up the train station on top. And in order to prevent any accidents as well as connecting the both floors from this factory, I put around some modern railings and connected both levels with these stairs. And I think it's about time that we start to work on our logistics network, mainly the railway connections, because yeah, this factory network has a lot of modular aspects, and it depends on bringing all the pieces together, some of them from A to B, then from B to C after further processing and so on. Some have to go back, and all in all we have to extend our railway connections here, and we have to start now, since now we actually have to bring the rubber from the rubber factory, as well as the AI limiters, at least partially, from our cruise ship factory, all the way over here. And in order to do so, I will actually delete this temporary railway that we built at the start of the project and extend the bridge that goes all the way to the, I think it's Nuclear Mayhem Gate, currently called. Yeah, right over here. It starts from the Dune Desert, from something around here, goes all the way through this valley, and then ends currently over here, and everything else from this point on is temporary. But I think I will extend this bridge right now in a straight line all the way to this corner. Then I want to build some kind of intersection, let's call it that way, make a 90-degree turn and go all the way down here to the rubber factory for now. I think we have to extend even further in the near future, but let's focus on one thing at a time and focus on bringing the rubber and the AI limiters to our current location. So yeah, that's the plan. Let me actually, oh, nighttime. Let me actually delete the, not the train station maybe, but these temporary railways, and then I come back to you. All right, for the first time we have a clear view on these factories from this angle here, because now the temporary railways are gone. The Nuclear Mayhem Gate is no more, nor is the rubber residence train station, and the concrete station will be gone soon as well. But now it's time to place some permanent railways and to extend the bridge that you can see there in the distance, because this will be our main railway connection and main railway for this whole network. Let's get out the blueprints and extend this thing. Now what I'm wondering is, if we aim straight forward, do we have a clear path or do we hit the cliff over there in front of us? I think we can make it around, but yeah, there's only one way to find out. Alright, and it should be simple as bringing out the blueprint and then trying to aim for the front and simply add it, and the rest build itself. This bridge is actually intended to have multiple purposes. On this floor here we have to build the railways. These cannot be blueprinted, they won't connect automatically. And on the lower level we can make some vehicles run if we wish. For example, some trucks for shorter transportation routes or something similar. And on top there's also the possibility to add another hypertube system. But yeah, this is just optional. And for now, let's hope that I can simply stand here and add one layer after the other. Alright, very nice. Can we continue? Yes. Very simple. And after some hours of work, the bridge is now in place, at least for the main line. Many segments blueprinted, one after another, and then the railway is added manually on both sides so that we can drive into both directions. And at the start of the project we did not only prepare a blueprint for the bridge segment, but also for some pillars. And this is actually an alternating between two blueprints, which I called honeycomb up and honeycomb down. And the honeycomb down segment actually snaps perfectly onto the blueprints of the bridge, and then we simply alternate between both of them, and they perfectly build this honeycomb pattern. And we do this every 10 bridge segments or so, so that we have a steady support for our train railways. And actually I'm quite impressed, because even though this was not as tedious and took as many hours as, for example, a new factory, this is making a huge difference for the area here itself, and it looks like insane progress. Maybe it's because visible and present all over the place, because yeah, we will need railways almost everywhere, eventually. Anyways, right here in this corner, where the concrete factory and the Crystal Oscillator factory is, we have a 40-degree turn of the bridges over there, and then another 50-degree turn, so that we will eventually go into the rubber/AI factory direction. And right in this turn, I made some intersections so that we can connect the Crystal Oscillator factory with the railways. And on this side it's simply just a right turn, but on the other side it actually has to go in a loop underneath the bridge so that we have connected both directions with our railway system. And the idea is that we have the train station directly on top, maybe even 2 train stations because we have 2 inputs delivered to this place here, and the train come on this railway, enter maybe over here, unload the parts that they bring over here, and then exit on this way and go back on the main railway track. At least that's the idea for now. Okay, I was about to place the train station in the freight platform when I realized that I had a little error in my thought process when laying down the connections of the railways. Because the intention is that indeed it is correct that the drive direction is this one and the right turn here is the entry for the train station that we are about to build for the Crystal Oscillator factory, and then it comes the other way back, loops all the way up here and then goes into this direction. For the purpose of this factory and this connection for the train, it's actually wired wrong because we want to come from this direction over here on this track and then eventually turn right and go over here into the entry, and then to have a very short way for the train, exit the way out, turn right again and then go directly straight back to the rubber factory and the AI limiter factory. So I have to loop this track here the other way around so that we have the right direction, and then this one here just not with a right turn from here to the factory, but from the factory making a right turn into the direction of these 2 factories. So I have to change this really quick, just so you know why this might look different in a few seconds. Alright, nighttime again, but at least we got it figured out now. The train will arrive with the parts from over there, turn right, go all the way down, eventually be now on the left side, so it will enter the train station that we will set up from the left over there, unload all the goods that are required for the crystal oscillators, then goes over here, turns right, and heads straight back to our cruise ship factory and our rubber factory. Perfect. Let me wait for the nighttime to pass by actually, and then we continue. Alright, sun is rising again. I used the time to plan a little bit regarding the layout of our train station, and I think I found a good way to set it up. Now the idea is that we set the train station exactly here, and then we should be able to connect this within a right angle, but as we all know, train stations, or especially railways, can be very tricky. And then right behind this we set up 2 freight platforms. 1, 2. And then this railway should connect, but it doesn't. So we do this right angle turn once more. And it should connect now. What it does. And with that, the train station is in place. Now the idea is to actually not make this one big room all over the place, but we will make the train station separate and then still use this roof here on top of the manufacturers to build a little logistics floor where we can sort out the distribution for the manufacturers from out these train stations. So I think, I don't know how many meters this room will be high, but yeah, we will build a room until this point. And then another room with, I don't know, 4 meters, maybe 8 meters. Rather 4, just to sort out the logistics on top of the manufacturers and then feed in the AI limiters and the rubber that will be brought here by train from above. Let me just prepare the rest of the roof, and then we might even be able to do a little testing if everything works out according to plan today. You know what also would be cool? If we would make this platform or this ceiling out of glass so that you can see when the train arrives and leaves and the loading, unloading from underneath through the glass floor. That would be awesome. What do you think about this? Do you approve, or would you say that this is rather unrealistic because yeah, glass won't hold a train station? Let me know. I'm eager to try it out, but I'm also always curious about your opinion. Okay, and very soon after, the logistics floor that we are about to build looks like this from the top and like this from down under. And we definitely have to add lighting to this room because yeah, it's kind of spooky in here now. But that's a matter for another day. We also have to connect the power poles still, or the manufacturer's 2 power poles. Still a lot of things on the to-do list, but we will come to that one after another. And I also have a picture in mind already on how to distribute the incoming parts. So let's say on the left freight platform there are the AI limiters, and on the right one there's the rubber. So the AI limiters will go to the left and then all the way around, and then will be fed in from this direction. Let's say from here, and then feed into one of the 2 conveyor holes for each manufacturer. And the rubber will go to this direction and then will be fed in from the other side, let's say here. So this way the conveyor belts won't interfere with each other, we don't have to stack them, we don't have to worry about mixing them up. And I think I will prepare this really quick and show you what I mean, so it will be easier when you see it. And here we have it. Logistics floor completely laid out. So if we go for example on this belt here, which is the output for the rubber, it will be split from here into this direction and then only go onto these 4 conveyor lifts on this side, and the other 4 are connected on the other one, and then it repeats 7 times, and everything apart from this belt here is Mark 1 because it's sufficient for the input for the crystal oscillators. And the only thing that I didn't anticipate is that the splitters are actually too close to each other in order to have straight conveyor belt lines. So they do this curvy thing, but nonetheless I really like the pattern that they create. And now that we know that it's perfect and beautiful, we will hide it, encase it in concrete and never look at it again. Perfect. And in order to not waste any more time, I just took care of the rest of the to-do list, and now I can, if I didn't forget anything, I probably did, but anyways, I can show you the current result of our Crystal Oscillator factory. Now I must admit that I am very happy with how this factory turned out, and I just noticed that this train station was still named Station 15, so I just renamed it really quick into Crystal Oscillator In, so that we know that every part that is needed as an input for the crystal oscillators has to go over here. And now the only thing that we need to set up should be the train, because I was quite busy at these 2 factories over there as well. So let's build a train really quick, and let me actually give you the tour. Now we come from over here down this direction, and then we enter the rubber factory after a long time, where I also adjusted the names of the train station, and our crystal oscillator train has to pick up these 420 rubber per minute. Then after the loading process, we hopefully won't sink any more of the rubber. And then we have the possibility to turn right and go straight back, because this will be needed for the other rubber input at a later stage. But our crystal oscillator train will then go straight down to the pier, take a left, and then pick up the AI limiters, or at least part of the AI limiters, because we only need 60 for the crystal oscillators, but there will also be another train needed. And I'm just betting on, let me actually connect this really quick so that this train station can fill up. And I'm just betting on the backlog of our crystal oscillator train station, because eventually when we bring AI limiters in there all the time, but it only consumes 60 per minute, this will eventually backlog, and by the time we have the other factory that requires AI limiters built up, it will simply pick up the rest of the AI limiters over here. And then, since it's not that busy over here, at least for now, the train goes the same track then up here again, and finally turns left and heads back to the crystal oscillator factory. Now that is the plan. Let me actually edit the timetable and then turn on self-driving, and then we see if everything works as intended. Alright, timetable is prepared, and to be honest, this is already take 2, because the train station for the rubber was actually the wrong way around. I have no idea how that happened, but I corrected it already, and now let's see if it actually works as intended. If it does, it should break now very soon. Yes, okay, now it's actually the right way. And with that, the first batch of rubber leaves this factory, finally, for the first time. Now we are heading to the AI limiter train station, which is correct. Awesome. Off we go to the crystal oscillator factory. See you there. Very nice. Rubber and AI limiters reaching this place now. Awesome. Alright, perfect. So now all that's left to do is get the raw quartz over here to this place and start the whole thing up to get the crystal oscillator production running. Alright, now everything should be prepared. Train comes back again already. And I also went back into the cave once more because I remembered that we haven't overclocked the miners, and every miner should now transport and extract 500 raw quartz per minute. So let's bring it up to life and get our hands on the last needed input part for our crystal oscillators. And here comes the first batch. Finally, that actually took a good minute. Very long time. But on the top belt, the raw quartz is arriving now as well. Perfect. Alright, let's head in and start the next batch of machines up. Now here the raw quartz is actually feeding in both lines into the constructor input. And by the way, I just added another hypertube to this factory. I tend to forget them, but it's just so much more convenient to use them in order to move between floors. So yeah, we will use this one in a second. But first of all, let's go to this priority power switch and turn on the constructors. All the green lights already, very nice. From here we actually have a good overview. And the quartz crystal is getting extracted and is now heading up onto the logistics belts underneath our factory and getting provided to the manufacturers, which should now have all necessary input for our crystal oscillators, now that this is running as well. So let's head up. And give the manufacturers a go as well. Nice. Immediately many green lights, at least at the start, which means all input parts are reaching and we already get our hands on the first crystal oscillators. This line is coming to life as well. This will take a little longer, but it's also already reaching. And I merged all the crystal oscillator outputs And for display purposes, they will eventually travel up this conveyor belt. Now this ends right over here. On top there's nothing connected, so they will stop immediately on this lift. But once this is fully up and running, we have a steady flow of 60 crystal oscillators on this lift, so it should be completely full all the time and should look quite nice. Now we can also maybe rotate this 90 degrees so that we can see the crystal oscillators from the front. Should look even better. Let's actually do this right now, just so that we can see the difference. Like so. Yes, much better. Alright, and this should be the look that we will have permanently in this factory due to these 32 manufacturers and everything that's happening underneath. And with that, our Crystal Oscillator factory is up and running. Alright, now that the Crystal Oscillator factory is done, not only did we finish our first tier 2 factory, but we also completed the first input necessary for the uranium fuel rods, as well as partially the input for the beacons necessary. And that was actually a lot faster today than I anticipated, and I think this is proof that the preparation that we took and the amount of time and effort that went into the modular factories and the preparation beforehand now pays off and will pay off even more in the long run, because basically a lot of the stuff that we still have to do is now the parts that are prepared already, we just have to bring them together. And also a big accomplishment for today is the train logistics network that we started. Of course, if there are more trains running on this track, I will have to do the signaling. Oh, nice timing. I have to do some path signals, block signals, adding on the tracks to dedicate the direction as well as preventing the trains from crashing and interfering with each other. But I will do this in between episodes, most likely. But that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, feel free to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, or share your feedback in the comments below or on Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.